saw, it took me so long to find the words like you're accepted. Like they sent some big paragraph and I was like skimming it and like I couldn't find like the decision. And I was like, oh my gosh, like for so long I was like looking at and like it was just a sigh of relief. Like it wasn't even like a scream or like initial cry or like, it was just like a like finally, like thank you Lord. And then I cried, so then I went to the washroom. Medicine was a calling on my life. Being a doctor is so much more than your knowledge and what you know. Yes, that's a big part of it, but it's also like, can you interact with patients? Do you know how to see where people are coming from? Do you know different experiences, different diversities and things like that?
Many people entrust their well-being to medical doctors, but what drives someone to take on such a great responsibility? What inspires them, and how does their training prepare them for a profession that can be both incredibly rewarding and highly stressful? Trina is on a journey to become a medical doctor. In this episode, she shares what fuels her passion, the challenges she faces, and the rigorous selection process required to enter medical school in Canada. This conversation will give you a new perspective on what it takes to earn the title of doctor, and maybe tell you what your doctor really went through before they earned their title. Just like future Dr. Trina. Listen in.
I loved working with the cadavers. I feel like it was such a privilege to be able to like hold someone's lung, hold someone's heart. But there were definitely certain parts.
Trina, to someone who doesn't understand your goals, and they are probably meeting you for the first time, what would you say is the reason you are on the path to become a medical doctor?
That's a really deep question. Okay. First question.
We are deep over here.
Yeah, we're deep. We're deep. I feel like medicine was a calling on my life specifically. And my goal in this life is to listen to my calling that God has put on my life. And so, yeah, I stated before, it's a calling. I feel like this is something that was put on my heart. And it's one of those things where like I couldn't shake it. There was a point in my life where I was like, you know what, this is too hard of a path. Like, let me think of other things that I want to do. And medicine just kept calling me. So I generally feel like it's a calling on my life. And it's just like, I love to give back. And medicine and health and the body is something that I love to explore. I love to learn more about. So it was perfect because it's not only a calling, but also like a passion and an interest of mine. So when those things align, I feel like it's nice because then you're actually enjoying what you're doing. But yeah, overall, I'm Christian. And so I live to please God and to kind of follow his path for my life. And I feel like this is one of the paths to please him and bring people closer to God.
You know, you started off by saying that that was a very deep question, but I also feel like this is a very deep answer. Folks, if you're new to this show, this is The Couch Connect. Over here, I hang out with people and we talk about the science and art in everyday life experiences. So do subscribe to this channel and like this pod. And remember to tell your friends to tell their friend. And I make this commitment to you that I'm going to try to become better at what I do and continue bringing great guests like Trina here today.
My great guest. Thank you.
Yeah. When did you get the calling? Or when did you hear that you're having a calling? I'm just going to say that when you're bitten by the bug, because I feel like folks get bitten by some bug at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a good analogy, bitten by the bug. Because there was times where I wanted to shake it. Because again, such a challenge. I wouldn't say hard, challenging path. I grew up always interested in like science, in health, in the body. Like always interested in that. And so like literally going through schooling, so elementary, middle, high school, like I always had it in my head that I was going to be a doctor. So it wasn't like a one-time thing where it's like a boom. It was just like, it grew. It was just like, I wanted to be a doctor for sure. And I didn't doubt myself at all up until like undergrad, because I feel high school, it's just like, I'd tell people I want to be a doctor and they were like, yeah, great. Like you can do it. And then it was in undergrad. So I went to undergrad at U Ottawa, where I was surrounded by a lot of other premeds who were putting a lot of stuff in my head, whether it be like, oh, it's really hard, like no one gets in, I had this GPA, this stat, whatever, and I didn't get in. And so that's when I was kind of just like, ooh, like can I actually, this was like first year undergrad, because I was going to a lot of like those pre-med those pre-med talks and stuff where they would talk about like journey to med school, how do you get into med school, because I was really, really interested. And again, a lot of people were just like, it's really hard, like people don't get in, especially in Canada. And so that's when I was kind of just like, oh my gosh, like, ooh.
First time it hit you.
Yeah, that's the first time where I was genuinely like, oh my gosh, can I do this? Like doubting myself type of thing. I'd never doubted myself before that. Like all of high school, I was like, this is what I'm going to do, this like period. And then now it was just like, oh my gosh, like maybe I should look for other alternatives. And so I did explore a lot of different, I knew I wanted to be healthcare though. Like even if it wasn't physician, I was like, I have to work in healthcare. Like this is just what I'm interested in, what I love. And I'd already told myself that like things are easier when you go into it because you like it, and not just because of like money and prestige and things like that. So I was like, it has to be healthcare. So I feel like undergrad, I explored a lot of different healthcare aspects, which honestly, now that I look back, it was good to kind of solidify physician. But like there was a point in time where like I worked as a physiotherapist assistant.
Okay.
Like it was so random, but like.
Was this when you were in uni or?
Yeah, so this was in, I think second year.
During the summer break, I guess. Or when you
were No, this was like during school, okay. Yeah. And it was it's a gig that my roommate, one of my close friends, she was doing. And so I was like, you know what, let me just do it and see how I like. Again, I liked the healthcare part of it. So I loved talking to patients and things like that. But in terms of like the basis of what physiotherapy is and like focusing more on like bones and muscles, exercises and stuff, I was like, I feel like I'm still drawn to just medicine as a whole, where it's more like full organ systems and things like that. So I feel like that point I was like, okay, yeah, I want med again. And then I went on a medical mission trip. I love to travel, so I was always looking for those like medical mission trips. I'm not saying that you have to go on a medical.
From your church or from your?
No, this was actually from school.
Okay.
It was one of those like I was walking between classes, and they always have like things on the wall that they're advertising in school, and so it was like just on a paper, and I read it, and I was like, "Ooh, this would be interesting."
Yeah.
And then I went to like one of the meetings, and I was like, "This is fun." Like they were going to Costa Rica, and they were gonna do like basically pop up health seminars and workshops and stuff for the people living there in like really small communities and stuff. And I'm like, let's do it. And I loved that experience.
Okay, so I'm going to set you back here what you just said for a quick second. Are you sure that you weren't, excited to go to Costa Rica because, living in Canada and all this cold over here and over there is warm and summery? Are you sure that wasn't like, back in your head somewhere, it's Costa Rica,
See, that's what I'm saying. The trip was twofold because again, I love to travel. So of course I was like, Costa Rica, like, yes, beautiful. Costa Rica is beautiful. You have to go. But it was also like, this is also an opportunity where I can kind of figure out like, is it really medicine I want? Like, do I like this type of stuff? Because there was a lot of hands-on stuff, and it's kind of hard to get hands-on experience in undergrad.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have that much hands-on experience. And so I was like, hey, I can use this as kind of seeing if I really like it. And so I went and I was like, ooh, like I enjoy talking to patients, practicing physical exams.
Okay, so were you allowed to actually do physical exams on patients at this point?
So at this point, we were with a physician at all times.
Yeah.
So like,
and the physician was Canadian or from Costa Rica?
From Costa Rica.
Okay.
Which was nice as well because they knew a lot of background in terms of the diseases that they would see commonly there. Yeah. Because it's not necessarily the same thing that you would see in Canada. So yeah, we were always with the physician. They would like show us things, and like I was just really interested. Yeah. It's not even like, oh, I learned a whole bunch and was able to come back and use it, but it's just like I saw that, oh my gosh, like I really enjoyed when I was around the doctor and I would see what he was doing, and he would be like, oh, you want to come try this? So I was like, hey, like clearly there's interest, and I should follow this.
Great. And who organized the thing from here? Was it like a group of students who organized it, or was it the school in general?
It was the school. Okay. It was the school, yeah.
And it was generally for undergrad students, no physicians or medical school students.
No, it's for undergrad, and they had a lot of. So it was for medical students, pre-med students, pre-dental students, pre-veterinary students. So like a lot of people could come and kind of dibble and dabble, see if you like the stuff, before you apply to grad school. Yeah. And that's when I was like, hey, like I really want to do this. There was still a lot of doubt because obviously like it's still very challenging to get in, especially in Canada, but I was like, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. And I stopped listening to people's hearsay. Yeah. And I was like, God, if you want me to be a doctor, you will accept me.
Yeah. Probably you've realized by now that this conversation is going to be about medicine and the journey to get into medicine, especially in Canada. We're going to be talking about, Trina's journey into becoming a medical student. We're going to be talking about her challenges, her interests, and what, really makes her tick when she thinks about medicine. And I hope that I'll be able to get all these questions properly to her, that she can actually be able to answer them, because sometimes it's possible that I try asking the questions but I don't ask the right questions. So I hope that becomes something that we can work on today. So let's go back to Costa Rica here for a moment. Are there people who probably went to Costa Rica and they realized that maybe this wasn't?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's just like, it was actually nice to see. The one friend that I went with, it was just me and her.
Yeah.
She, after that trip, she was like, yeah, I don't think this is what I want to do. And then I was like the complete opposite, where I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So literally
took a totally different
path.
Yeah,
like two completely different paths. She was like, And I think one of the things that she said to me was also the fact that, Trina, like, I saw your excitement, like when patients would come and things like that. And I realized I actually don't have that excitement, that drawing, that yearn for medicine. Like, not to compare, but it's just like, I just realized that maybe that's not my main goal. And maybe it was just something that, like, you always grew up thinking like, oh, doctor, then your parents would be like, yeah, that's a good profession, run with that.
Yeah.
And so she realized, like, I actually don't care. Like, it would be nice, but I don't care for it as much as I probably should.
Yeah.
And so she didn't write off fully at that point, but she was like, I really have to explore. And then after exploring, she decided not to. And right now, I think she's in her master's for like public health.
Okay.
So still, again, health, but not like
becoming a physician.
So public health. And I think she wants to do a PhD. So she's still really doing well, but she just realized, like, that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exploration is really, really important.
True.
If you're thinking of med, yeah.
And I like that your school actually did offer you opportunities to explore and understand, what you're getting yourself into. What is your undergrad in again?
Health science at U Ottawa.
Okay. So when people go into health science, are they all going into health science because they want to become doctors, or because they want to do things related to health?
Most of the time, it's just because they're interested in just healthcare as a whole. So I have a lot of classmates who ended up going to into accelerated nursing and are nurses now.
Yeah.
I have a lot of classmates who went into physiotherapy school and are physiotherapists now. I know some people that went into like speech language pathology, and some people even realized like, I don't like healthcare, and just kind of did a 180 and just went somewhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, most people come in thinking healthcare, but not necessarily physician, although there is a good amount of people that do come in like, hey, yeah, I want to be a doctor. So that was like me.
Okay. What would you say that is that percentage of people come in and they say they want to be doctors?
I want to say maybe 50, like 40, 50.
Okay. So half of your classmates.
Because
probably.
a lot of people too, like the person that I'm thinking about who did physiotherapy after, she did originally come and wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
And then she realized, I think I like physiotherapy better.
Yeah.
So I want to say a high number come in wanting to be a doctor, and then there's some of that leave being like, let me choose something else in healthcare.
What do you study actually as in health science? What are you studying?
It's pretty broad. So we did like your core sciences. So we did anatomy.
Yeah.
We did biology. We did chemistry. You do some specific classes like social determinants of health. There was a class for that, which was really good because that's like really important in healthcare. And then you also have like your stats classes. It's very broad, which is why it's nice if you're like healthcare, but don't really know what in healthcare, because it's pretty broad.
Do you think the program prepares you well enough to go into the medical program? I mean, and I'm talking about a health science program generally in any university in Canada or in the United States.
I feel like it's a good one to go into.
Okay.
It gives you the prereqs you need. And then it's also, I know for U Ottawa specifically, it was pretty spacious as well, where you can add in any prereqs that you wanted to do. And again, it was a very broad scope in terms of healthcare. So it wasn't just like core sciences. We had our core sciences like science, biochem, but then there was also more of like the broader, more social aspects. So again, social determinants of health. There was a class on like disabilities.
Was there anything like psych in there?
Yeah, there was psych. So that was good as well. It's like you look at healthcare as like broad and not just the anatomy of it. So I feel like that was good, because when you go into medicine, people don't realize, but there's a huge social aspect in medicine. So you have to know, like your psychologies, your social determinants of health. That's like huge in medicine. Like they drill that into us.
Yeah, and I love what you said here, that the program gave you enough, like foundations to probably get into the program and understand better.
I think, sorry, just one more thing to add. I think it was good as well because it's not too streamlined either.
Okay.
So if you realize that, I don't really think I want medicine, you could still do public health grad program. You can still do a PT grad program.
Yeah.
You can do accelerated nursing. So you don't have to like make up your mind right now that it's just like, it has to be physician.
Yeah.
You can kind of just dibble dabble and then do what you want in terms of grad school.
Okay. Is it possible that someone goes in thinking they want to become a doctor and they work really hard when to become a doctor, but then they don't become a doctor and they kind of become discouraged? They're like, no, why did I end up doing this program and I didn't become a doctor? And, I should probably have done something else from the beginning.
There probably are people that are like that. Again, a lot of the people that I know that were like that, they still wanted healthcare.
Okay.
So it's just like they went in like, okay, maybe doctor, and then they realized no, but then they're like, ooh, but like, I feel like I'm still interested in like nursing or like, I don't know, PT or OT, occupational therapy. So.
Yeah. Or physician assistant.
Physician assistant. Yeah. There's just so many things that you can do. Or respiratory therapist. I feel like there's so many different careers in healthcare and people only know like nurse and doctor.
Yeah.
And that's why it's just like explore. You may like something else a bit more.
Good. Do you have your phone there with you?
No, it's right there.
Okay, cool. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you say there's so many careers in healthcare.
Yes.
Other than just being a doctor or a nurse or something like that. So can you list those careers for me? I wanted to have your phone because maybe
that's
you can.
Absolutely fine. I can list the ones that I can think of.
Okay, cool.
So there's social work that is connected to medicine. So social workers work in the hospital as well.
Yeah.
So say like, ooh, I love social work, but like I still want to be embedded in healthcare. You can do social work in the hospital. There is physical therapy. There is occupational therapy. There is respiratory therapy. There is speech language pathology. There is your nurse. There is the physician. There is there's something that there's child life specialists. So these are the people that if like a child is going to have a surgery, these are the ones that are going to go and explain it to them and kind of tell them what to expect in like, childlike manner. What else? Those are the things I can think of off like the top.
Yeah.
There's radio, like sonographers, X-ray techs, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. I think that that kind of covers it. And what I'm trying to tell folks here is that there's many other things in healthcare, apart from just being a doctor. And I also think that before, as a patient, if I was going to see a doctor, before I actually see a doctor, there's so many other people that I can see.
Exactly. Physician assistant. I almost forgot about, physician assistant.
And so I was thinking about, something else totally here. So I'm a professor of medical innovation. And so one of the things that we do is we train engineers who are going to work with doctors.
Biomedical,
Yeah, and so we got biomedical engineers in there. But then again, we got medical surgical planning technicians.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the things that, I don't know, we're going to talk about what you want to go into eventually. But one of the things that I do is teach this software that's called Mimics. And it's basically a surgical planning software that enables your engineers to map out the anatomy of the patient, and this can enable the surgeon to plan their surgeries. And if they're going to do it like laparoscopically, they see what they're actually going to go into. And this has been shown to cut out surgical time by almost 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's so many other things that people could do, and if they are passionate about healthcare.
Exactly. Right? That's such a good point, because it's just like, say you love healthcare, but it's like, I also love engineering and I love doing things like that. Like, you can do that.
Yeah.
I had an idea that was out there. Like, I knew there was biomedical engineer, but I didn't know to that extent.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. If you probably end up working as a radiologist or anything like that, you probably, somehow end up working with a piece of software from Materialize. So Materialize is the parent company out in Belgium.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so let's come back to your, undergrads and the grades that, first of all, enable you to stay in the program and enable you to get out of the program into getting into med school. How are you able to maintain those grades? I want to believe they have very high grades,
Grades are important. I'm not even going to lie. Please do not let anyone tell you that grades are not important when you're applying to medical school. It's not the only thing, but it really puts your foot in the door, for sure. You have to have a certain GPA. In terms of me, again, I went in already knowing that like I was interested in medicine. And so I knew that my grades had to be high. And so that meant finding friends that were in my program so that we can study together. That meant making sure like I I wouldn't say put my head down and just studied, because I absolutely did not do that. But like, if I had an exam coming up, I would, put the work in. That meant I was organized. So I'm someone that, like, if I have an exam coming up, I'll start studying a little while before, so I can just do a little bit each day. So I'm not stressing.
Very opposite from me.
Honestly, opposite from a lot of people. I feel like even some of my like colleagues in med school, they're like, no, I'm still a last minute person.
Yeah,
that's what works for them.
So last minute. I remember in my undergrad, I used to cram the entire semester into one night just before the exam. And somehow, you're gonna come back to what you're saying. I'm sorry for cutting you off. But I remember what I used to do is I used to talk to my friends. I used to transnight the entire night I'm studying, and in the morning when I'm going to the exam, I'm not talking to anyone because I can't even say hello to you, because if I say hello, I'm gonna forget. See,
that's the thing. Like, why are you putting the information?
So I keep everything in, and somehow it worked for me somehow. Yeah, but you were saying, how you're doing it.
The fact about being organized, that allows for balance. So because I studied a little bit each day, that means the day before I still study, but that's not my heavy studying day. So the day before I'll study, but then I can also like, let me go out and relax with friends and things like that. So people look at me and they're just like, how are you relaxing the night before an exam? And I'm like, because I didn't wait the last minute to study.
That's going to be me looking at you like, how do you relax?
My roommate used to be like, how are you out here watching shows with me and you have an exam tomorrow? And it's just like, I did my studying. Like, I'm okay. So I feel like just being organized, putting like a lot of effort into my work, I was able to keep my grades up. I was also, again, in a program that I liked my classes, meaning that there still were classes where I was just like, why am I taking this? But a lot of the classes where I was interested in. So then it wasn't hard to like study and stay interested in what was going on. Because I liked what I was learning. So that also adds to like the fact that like, okay, I don't mind studying right now because like, oh, this is actually pretty interesting.
Did you start being, organized in uni or from when you were a kid?
So these are skills that I built like early on, like middle school, high school. I want to say like my parents honestly did a really good job in terms of like showing me how to study properly. So that by the time I got to middle school, like I already knew what works for me. I knew I wasn't a last minute person, so I knew I needed to study a couple of days before to make sure that I was good. I knew I had to write notes. I'm a note taker, so I did that. Like I really feel like I set myself up well so that once I got into undergrad, I already had a rhyme and a rhythm. Yeah. And so it was kind of just like continuing that versus, yes, there are some things that you have to change, but like you shouldn't be like completely renovating yourself or like trying to find a whole bunch of new things to do in undergrad. You should have built those skills before. And like it's okay if you haven't built those skills, but at least try to kind of have some type of foundation or some type of thing that you do when tests or when projects come, so that you can just follow that. And honestly, it's helped me through elementary school, middle school, high school, undergrad, and now med school. So like I literally stay true to my study habits. Some things have changed just because the amount that we're learning in med school is different. But I want to say like to the core, it's the same type of stay up to date, don't wait last minute. And it's brought me this far. So
I like that you actually did give some sort of recognition to your parents. So were your parents educators, or how are they able to get you into this routine early on, because you gave them those flowers?
My parents aren't educators, but my mom works like really close with the kids. Okay. So I feel like she's good in terms of, my mom could be a teacher for sure. But my mom and my aunt, they were both in the sciences. So they went to University of Toronto for, I think they both did biology. And so they knew the rigors. So they're just like, this is how you study this. And then my dad was in like business and finance and things. So they both went to undergrad. And so they knew like, books are important, like studying is important.
Were they very involved, in your studying when you were a kid?
So when I was little, I actually think back about this now and I'm just like, oh, that's so cute. When I was little, if I had a test coming up, my mom would be like, okay, like go and study. And then she would like make me come down with my book or whatever chapter that I was supposed to study that night. And like, she would test me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I can like okay, I clearly didn't study well enough if I'm not getting the answers or the questions that she asked me, right? And then like if I got them all wrong, she'd be like, hey, yeah, you didn't like study properly, go back upstairs and study. And if not, then it was like, yeah. So it's like she used to test me. I used to love getting tested because it can show me like, yeah, like I study well. She used to like go over my homework and stuff. She used to give me ideas in terms of like, you know, maybe if I had like a essay, like maybe write a bit about this and this. So they were very instrumental. Like me and my sister used to do our homework on like the kitchen table.
Yeah.
And my mom used to like be sitting in the living room on the sofa. She would be talking on the phone to her sisters, but like she was there like if we needed help. So I feel like that, help. And then even just the structure of that, where it's just like you come home and you eat, go to the kitchen table and you do your homework. So I feel like there was a lot of structure growing up, and till this day I keep that structure.
Okay.
And I feel like that's helped me.
Yeah. And I just want to say, you know, give a shout out to your parents. You know, thank you very much, the parents of Trina. You did a good job, you know, in training. And I think that what you've said here is probably going to help somebody else. Because I think that parents are very instrumental in enabling their kids to become successful in, you know, whatever career they want to go into. So you told me that you were able to maintain good grades, you know, all throughout your, you know, uni, and that grades are important. So what if somebody's not able to maintain good grades? Are those really going to affect their chance of admission to medical school? Let's say you are doing very poorly in your first year and your second year, but maybe in your third year and your fourth year, you did great. So what is that going to be like?
Yeah, that is an important question, because that is a lot of people's fear. So some schools, I don't even know if they do this anymore, but I remember that there was a time when U of T, like if you took a full course load for every semester, they would drop like a couple of your lowest grades. So some schools do that. Some schools they look at third and fourth year a bit higher, so that's better. And then sometimes it's just a matter of like, you know what, I didn't know I wanted to go into med, and so my grades just weren't the best. And we were talking about this before, where it's just like you just go and do a master's program. And then that's like what they mainly look at for your grades, and you really show, and it's a good story because then you can show that, you know, like before in undergrad, I wasn't really putting my all, but I realized medicine is something I really want. And so then I did a master's, and like, you know, I've shown through my grades that I'm capable of putting my mind to things and studying for things. And I know a lot of my colleagues in mid school who went to do a master's just because like their grades in undergrad, I wouldn't say it was like bottom barrel, but it just wasn't as competitive as they wanted it to. Yeah. And so they did a master's, did really well in the master's, put their all into that master's, and they were able to get research from it. So that's good on your application. And then they were also able to show that they had better grades and that they could manage the rigors of medical school. Yeah.
So I like what you said, because I think what you're painting here is that your application to medical really is a story. It is not just your grade. It's a story of who you are and how you got the grades that you have. And you can repaint that story if you are, you know, you had poor grades, especially in your first couple of years of school, right?
Absolutely. And then also your experiences. Like the application is made up of, yes, your GPA, yes, your MCAT score for some schools, because there are some Canadian schools that don't look at the MCAT. But then also like what volunteer did you do? How did you give back to your community? Where did you work? So now they're trying to, like you said, people come from different backgrounds. So there may be one person where they had a good family foundation and they didn't have to work in their undergrad years, and so they can just dedicate all of their time to schooling. While there's other people who it's just like, my parents didn't have the money. I had to bring myself or put myself through undergrad. So I had to work while doing school. And you already know like would probably have the higher grades, the person that could put all of their effort into studying. And so now schools are like looking at these things to, again, look at the whole story to see like, hey, this person, yes, they may have a little lower grades, but look at their volunteer, look at the different jobs they had. That still shows that like they can be a hard worker and they can, you know, succeed.
True. So you've talked about all these requirements that you need to go into med school. So actually, how many schools did you apply to?
I applied to U of T, Queens, I'm gonna say Western, U Ottawa. I want to say like 3 or 4 I applied to.
So you applied to multiple schools. So we're going to come to that, you know, why it's important to apply to multiple schools. But let's talk about the MCAT real quick here. So how did you prepare for the MCAT? First of all, what is the MCAT? What is that?
The MCAT is the medical admissions test. The MCAT, it's a challenging test. I'm not even going to lie to you. It's a challenging test. some schools are now moving away from using the MCAT as a predictor because they're realizing that like you doing well on the MCAT does not necessarily mean that like this is now you're going to be such a great doctor.
Yeah.
Like this cannot be the only thing that we look at. So again, some schools are kind of moving away from that. Like I know U Ottawa, I don't think looks at either U Ottawa or McGill. Either like doesn't look at the MCAT, but some schools still use it and they still have cutoffs.
Yeah, and I know McMaster looks at one section only.
McMaster, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. People are doing it different. McMaster looks at like only cars. So that's what the MCAT is, that admissions test that you have to do. It's very comprehensive. So there's biology in it, there's chemistry, there's physics, there's psych and soc. People think that that's not important in medicine, but it is. And then there's like a reading comprehension part, which is called CARS.
Yeah.
And that's usually where a lot of people struggle with, just because you only have limited time and they ask you to read this long paragraph or a couple of paragraphs and then ask you questions about it. In terms of how I studied for the MCAT, again, very much was a privilege, but I did it as like a full-time job. So I studied from 8 to 4 for 5 days a week for, I want to say, 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
But before that, did you take any courses to prepare you for that?
So I did the MCAT twice. The first time I did it was in the summer after my second year. So by that time I already took my core like chemistry classes, biology classes. So yeah, I was able to do that. So again, I took it twice. The first time I took to the MCAT, I used a company that made a schedule for me, gave me books and things like that. It was called Blueprint. The second time I took the MCAT, I realized that although that was good at the time, I didn't want to study like that again.
Yeah.
Because when you use like the courses, they kind of, again, make your schedule. Versus me, I know myself. So I know, okay, I'm pretty good with biology. Let me obviously still study biology, but maybe a little bit less than, for example, like chemistry and physics.
Yeah.
I knew I needed to put more work into that. And so I feel like the courses don't really adjust for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the second time I still used the books that they gave me. So those were still really good. But yeah, I studied, did practice questions. So I used things like UWorld, which gave me a lot of practice questions.
Yeah.
I used the double AMC. So that's like who writes the MCAT.
Yeah.
So I used those questions. Yeah.
So UWorld is a paid for.
UWorld you have to pay for, but I love UWorld.
Did you use Khan Academy?
Yes, I use Khan Academy for more like of the math stuff because there's no calculators on the MCAT.
Yeah.
So you have to know how to do your mental math. So I used Khan. Khan was good. That's a free resource. There was something called Jack Weston.
Yeah, Jack Weston
for
the
cars.
Yeah.
That's a good resource. I'm trying to think of the other free. There's another. I don't remember what it's called, but they make like MCAT. Anki cards. I don't know. Do you know what Anki is?
Yeah, I know what Anki is.
Yeah, so they make Anki cards.
So to explain what Anki is, it's kind of like you can call it a Quizlet sort of resource, or it's a resource that would take how much you know and kind of like try questioning you on the stuff that you know and kind of like put those flashcards on the side, kind of like, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to say that Jack Weston now actually does everything too. I mean, it stopped doing the cars session anymore. One thing that I failed to understand, is Jack Weston a person, or is it a company, or is it a pseudonym?
I generally don't know who or what Jack Weston is, but shout out Jack Weston.
Doing a good job, free, and it's free too, right?
Shout out Khan. Khan's been doing his big one. Yeah. But yeah.
Do you think that these people do it for why do you think these people do it?
That's a good question. I don't know. Sometimes it's like they have a story behind it. Kind of like what you were saying, the reason for your podcast, where like, your daughter and things like that. I don't know. Maybe Khan, he had a daughter that was going into the sciences and like was having a hard time. And so he was like, I'm going to make these videos for her. So we don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the reach has widened and they've helped so many people. So
I've actually never shared to the people here, so I'm going to tell them now. So Trina and I were talking earlier about why I do this podcast. I was telling her, I actually don't get paid for this podcast. I was telling Trina that the reason why I do this podcast is I'm documenting this for my daughter in the future, and
that is so cute.
My daughter can take time to watch this and understand stuff that probably by the time I was. I didn't know most of the stuff that I talk about with the guests that I sit on this couch with, and at the same time I'm able to do some sort of research into any topic that I'm going to be talking about, and that research enables me to understand stuff too. But I mostly do this for my daughter. You told me how you prepare for the MCAT. If you fail it, so you can retake it.
Yeah, you can retake it.
And I also think that some schools can decide not to consider older scores and consider only new scores. And some schools will look
Yeah.
at both scores, your old ones and the new ones, and they can they kind of have like a way they look at those. So some other schools look at other things. So one of the schools that I know that uses the CASPer test is McMaster. I think you also does the CASPer test, right?
Yes.
Okay,
A lot of I feel like more and more schools are starting to use the CASPer.
So let's talk about CASPer. Maybe it's gonna be mainstream in the next couple of years. So what is CASPer test?
It's basically like a situational like judgment test where they give you like real life scenarios, real life conflicts that you could experience in just every day. And they basically ask you like, what would you do in this situation? So there's two parts to CASPer. There's the typed out part where they give you a scenario and then you have like a certain amount of time to type out your response. So you have to be a fast typer. And I feel like they realized that they didn't want that to be a barrier where it's just like, I don't type fast, so I'm not going to do well on the CASPer. So now there's another portion. Well, it's the same test, but half of the test is the type, and then the other half would be more of just like a verbal part. So your camera goes on and you just speak what you would do. So yeah, it's a situational test.
Yeah.
An example would be you're working in like a group project and one of the group members are not pulling their weight. How would you handle it? So like they want to kind of see the way you think, and they want you to have different options. So maybe like go and talk to the group member that's not pulling their weight, pull them aside and just figure out like what's going on. Maybe there's something happening at home which is making them not be able to do the project, or maybe their computer broke, or they're basically just trying to see that you can see from different people's perspective, and you wouldn't just be like, wow, this person should get a 0 and they suck. Yeah, basically.
True. So you kind of need to give a response that is multifaceted.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Different scenarios, different situations, and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So would you say there's a correct answer or a wrong answer in the CASPer test?
Okay, there's a wrong answer in terms of like you just being like, I would ignore them and tell the professor that they should get a 0. I feel like that is a wrong answer. But if you don't do that, then I would say there's not really like one right answer, because again, they just want to see that you're thinking in different aspects. So maybe the first thing that you could say is like, I would go talk to them, see what's happening. And then you can also say like, we would make a plan where it's just like, maybe you can just do this small part and then everyone else can split the rest. But then you do want to come to the conclusion that like, say they're still not cooperating and they're not doing anything, then maybe I would have to let the professor know that either my group needs more time because we've lost a member, or that this person's not pulling their weight. So they just want to see that there's like different avenues depending on what happens in the scenario.
Yeah.
But like, no, there's no right answer.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think that's very important to understand that there's no correct answer, but of course there's a couple of wrong answers.
Yeah. The wrong answer would just be like, I would just tell them they suck. Like,
true. I know that.
How would you do that?
I know that they normally tell you not to share what what you took in the CASPer test, and so I'm not going to ask you that, because that's going to be putting.
Wait, what? Like your score?
No, what the scenarios that they give you. Yeah,
I would say the one I shared was a pretty realistic. Scenario.
Yeah. But I think another realistic scenario is you go into a swimming pool. So there's two swim guards in a swimming pool, and you're one of the swim guards, and the swimming pool can only be open when there's two swim guards. And so for some weird reason, one of your colleague didn't show up, so it's only you there. So what do? Do you open, or do you decide to leave the swimming pool closed?
Oh, okay. Yeah, see, like I see that, because then now you think about like, is there someone I can call as backup? You see, like you have to. It can't just be like I would close the swimming pool. Yeah, like exactly. You have to think in different scenarios. Maybe there's someone I can call up. Yeah, so
and you got to think about, if you close the swimming pool, there's people who only have 1 day a week to show up, and so what's that going to do to them? Right. And I think also speaking about that also shows that you are actually aware of that, but you kind of probably had your hands were tied, and that is why you actually had to close, even if they can't have another place to practice or to swim or exercise.
See, that'd be another thing too, where it's just like, maybe if you do have to close, I can give them suggestions where it's just like, we may be closed, but there's another swimming pool 5 minutes away that you can go to and practice. Or you can go to and do swimming lessons. So they always want to, like, there's always options. There's always options. And I feel like they realize the importance of having tests like CASPer before med school, because med school is not just, are you good at anatomy? Are you good at chemistry? A lot of medicine is making these hard decisions where it's just like, this is a hard situation. Do I do A, B, or C? So they want to know that, like, obviously you don't have all the answers because you're not yet in med school, but like, how to think with different, tools and things.
True. All right. So after doing all these things, I mean, there's many other things that you probably need to to prepare for before you apply. So then you applied. So you told me you applied to a couple of different schools. So why is it important that you apply to multiple schools?
You gotta cast that net wide. It's hard to get into. I don't like hard. It's challenging to get into Canadian medical schools just because there's so many people applying and there's only a certain amount of Canadian medical schools.
Yeah, there's limited spots available.
There's limited spots, there's limited schools.
Yeah.
Now, thank God, they're starting to open up more schools and spots and things, but that's just the reality of it. So you have to kind of cast your net wide.
Yeah, true.
Although you also have to know yourself and your grade. So if you know, for example, I did not apply to McMaster's. And again, maybe I should have just applied and seen what would happen, but I know that I did not have a competitive car score. And I know that that is important to McMaster's. Like they only look at cars for MCAT. So I'm like, am I going to waste a bunch of money knowing that I probably won't get an interview? Or do I just apply and see what happens? So that depends, I feel, on your financial situation. Like if you have a whole bunch of money and you have that money to just be like, I'm going to apply even though there's a low chance, absolutely go ahead and do that. You never know. I've heard people get in even with, low scores. But for me, it was just like, I want to be a bit more intentional in terms of where I apply. And so I didn't apply to Mac because the cars, and I just didn't have a super competitive score. Yeah. I also wanted to go to a 4-year program. So that was something I thought about as well. Yeah. And McMaster's is a 3-year medical school program. Yeah.
Why is that? I'm actually
why did I want to go to 4-year?
Yeah, why not a 3-year? Because I would imagine that Mac also prepares you well enough.
Prepares you well, but it's also, again, like you have to look at you. If you go to a 3-year, you know that you're going to have to choose the specialty faster. Yeah. So there's not that much time. Versus 4-year, it's like you have that whole extra year to kind of figure out like what I want to do.
What you want to do.
Yeah. And then also, I know I wanted my summers. McMaster, because it's 3 years, they don't have any summers. Yeah. And I wanted to be able to vacation in between med school. Yeah. And take time off and get breaks. They get breaks, but not like the big summer 3-month breaks that the 4-year programs get. And so, so just know yourself. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with 3-year medical school programs. What I am saying is that you have to sit down with yourself and say, am I going in knowing what I want to do already? Do I need that extra year to decide? Do I not care to have my summers and just go through school quick? Like, see what you want.
Yeah, and I think it's useful that you actually give that answer, why you did that, because it is possible that, listening to what we are talking about here, someone will say, a 3-year program, maybe it's not going to make me ready enough. But what you said is that it is because of you and, thinking about what you want to do in your couple of years in med school and how your experience was going to be like. So that's very important.
If the 3-year program was the only thing I got into, I would have went. I would have went. Don't get me wrong. I would have went. Yeah.
Yeah, true. So you apply. You got an interview, right?
The second time I applied. So I actually applied to med school twice. Okay. Yeah. So the first time I applied, I did not even get an interview. Okay.
How did that make you feel?
Horrible. 2 thumbs down. That was a horrible, horrible, horrible time. This was, so my plan was to get into med school right after I finished undergrad.
When did you finish undergrad?
When? 2022.
Okay.
So I wanted to start med school 2022. So finish undergrad in April, graduate in May, and then start school in September. Yeah. That was not God's plan for me. So I did not get in, and I took a 1-year gap year, and I loved that gap year. Like, me looking back now, I'm so happy I did not get into med school. Again, I can only say this now because in the moment, I was weeping and gnashing teeth. Yeah. But anyway, I got 2 jobs, well, not at the same time, but one after the other, where I was able to work in clinics. So the first was a walk-in clinic. Lots of hands-on experience with that. We learned how to do injections. I learned how to take short histories just because it was just quick and then you tell the doctor. I learned how to work with doctors. And then the second one was more of an appointment-based interdisciplinary clinic. So there was dietitians there was nurse practitioners there was social workers there. So I saw the importance of working as a team. So those work experiences were really, really good. And then that's also when I started making my hair content and that ended up blowing up. And that was a great year. And then I also stayed in Ottawa. So I got to actually explore Ottawa, not being a student anymore, just as a gap year person. Yeah, living there. I got close to a group of girls in Ottawa. It was a great year. I still look back at that year. I'm just I'm so happy I was able to get a year off where I can just find myself, indulge in my hobbies, get some hands-on experience. I loved that year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's important also to consider that.
Yes.
Probably. So maybe I'm going to ask you what you did during that gap year to prepare for your second application cycle. But maybe if you applied and you didn't get in the first time, take time to do whatever she did. So let's talk about what you did. In the gap year.
So
I mean, in preparation for the application cycle specifically, not about
it's actually funny that you say that, because you apply for medical school in October.
Yeah.
So, okay, let me just put the timeline in perspective. So I got rejected from like all medical schools by like February, March. I knew I wasn't going to medical school the end of that year. So September. Yeah. I finished my undergrad degree in April, graduated in May. And then during the summer, I was basically, I don't even know where I worked. I think I just had like a random summer job. So like, I wouldn't say anything that really like was good for my application. And then your application is due again in October.
Yeah.
So there's not much that you can do between that time. So I want to say all of the stuff that I talked about. So the 2 clinical jobs, the starting my hair page, none of that was on my application. And that's why it's just like, wow, like there is a reason that I got in the second time. Because it's not even a thing where, oh, all these new experiences were put on my application and that's what got me in. Like I basically applied with like a very similar application as my last one. I think I just added in a bit more like me stuff. So like in a part of the application is you put stuff that you've done since you were like 16.
Yeah.
And I put a lot of things like journaling and things like that, just to show that like these are ways I cope during stressful times, which is very important in med school. But yeah, these are like the little things I changed. My essays were a little bit different as well. So yes, there was a few things that was tweaked a bit, but in terms of like a huge change to my application, I would say like there wasn't a crazy change to my application. I just feel like that wasn't the year that I was supposed to get in. So yeah.
All right. So then your second application cycle, you were able to get an interview.
Yes, to one school.
Oh, okay.
One school. Yeah. Shout out UFT.
Let me ask you. So when you were applying, are there schools that you felt like, you know what, I feel like I might get in here. Here, maybe I'm not very competitive, but let's just put it in because was there anything like that?
You know what? Ottawa. I thought I was gonna get an interview to Ottawa. That was one of like my top schools. Yeah, like UFT. I was like hoping because that was my dream school. So I was like, oh, please. But I was like, okay, I feel like I have a good fighting chance for Ottawa and a good fighting chance for Queen's. I want to say these were like my 3 universities. I was like, okay, I could get one. I don't think I applied to Western because they were asking for too many essays. That was me being lazy. So please do not do that. Apply to Western. What was the other school? And then McMaster.
I think you said Queens. You did
really, Queens. So those are the 3 that like I was like, okay, I feel like I have a good chance.
Yeah.
But I got rejected from Queens. This is like pre-interview. Rejected from Ottawa pre-interview, and then U of T. They have waves of when they send out interviews. So I was in the second wave. They sent me an interview. I literally remember I was at work because I was working at the clinic, and I just started working at the clinic. So I was still doing like training. So they put me in this little room and I was doing like women's training. And I was just like, And then I went on my phone, I saw an email and I saw like University of Toronto and my heart dropped because I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to give me like we regret to inform you, you weren't chosen. So my heart actually dropped and I was like, no. And then I opened it and I saw the interview invite and I was like, I remember being so happy because for me in my heart, I was just like, I just need you to give me an interview. And then I will show you why I need to be in school. Yeah. So it was just like, once I saw that interview invite, I was like, yes, I can prove myself to these people. Yeah.
In hindsight, let's say that the message that came in that email was, we regret to inform you. What do you think you'd have done?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Because by this point, that would have been my second time applying. And U of T was like the last school I was waiting on. So like everyone else had rejected me. So if they had rejected me pre-interview, it kind of would have been like a done. Like it's done. I would have to wait for the next cycle. I don't know what I would have done. I know I probably would have applied again. But it would have taken a lot.
Would it have taken a toll on you?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. The first one already took a toll on me mentally. So that second rejection, like, yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it's normalized to not get into med school after the first one and then try again and get in. But the people that are able to apply like 3-4 times, my hat is off to you. Like, you guys are very strong, like strong-willed, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's that third and fourth time that really beat you down, because it's just like, ugh. Yeah, it's rough.
Okay.
It takes a mental toll for sure.
Would there be any tips that you'd give people on how they could handle that toll if that happens?
Surround yourself. Well, let yourself feel the emotions. So don't just like, I don't care. Like, yeah, you do care. That's why you applied to med school. You do care. Let yourself feel the emotions, but then surround yourself with people that care about you. Like, for sure. My family was a really big, like, stronghold for me during that time, because, again, huge mental toll. My friends were really strong as well. Yeah. You need people that will encourage you to continue. Because at that point, it's just like, okay, let me look for something else to do. Yeah. It sucks.
Okay, I'm happy for you that you actually had people around you to do this for you. So let's say that it's possible that maybe you tried to get in and you didn't get it in Canada. Are there other options for people who aren't able to get in Canada?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of options. Ireland is an option. So a lot of Canadian students will go to Ireland, do med school there, and then they actually, I'm pretty sure they have a program that makes it a bit easier to match back to residency. So that's like after med school you do residency. That's like your first doctor job. Yeah. So you can go there, then come back for residency. And then there's also just American schools. American has just so many more options, which makes it a tad bit easier to get in. Obviously you still have to have competitive grades, things like that. But unfortunately in Canada, you can have all these competitive stats and still not get in just because we don't have a lot of seats, a lot of schools. Yeah. In America, there's just much more opportunities. So you can then go take your good stats and apply over there, and hopefully that will work out for you. And then you can either stay there or try to come back after for residency. Yeah. And then there's the Caribbean. Yep. People don't know the Caribbean. Yeah. You can go to the Caribbean, do med school there, and then again, match back in residency.
I feel like people who go to the Caribbean end up in the U.S. though most of the time.
They do, but no. There are some people that have come back to Canada. Yeah,
of course. I know a couple also. I mean, I was actually just talking to a guy this morning. He matched in Western, not Western, but in Western University's residency program, and he went to St. Matthew's, I think, one of the schools.
I know another person too that went to Grenada, I think.
Yeah, and then that's St. George's, the school.
Went to Grenada and then matched back into Canada for like family med or something. Yeah, it definitely is a bit harder, but it's doable. People have done it, and that's my thing. It's just like something may be challenging. If you look forward and you see that other people have done it, you can do it too. So
I want to give a fun fact about the school I talked about in Grenada. So St. George's University is the largest supplier of medical doctors in the U.S.
Wow.
The largest single university that has supplied the largest number of doctors in the U.S. So that's something that I looked at, and it was interesting. But something else that I've learned is that people go down to the Caribbean. It might be really stressful, especially if you weren't really good, because most of the schools are just going to take you. I mean, the interviews are not very hard. Their grade requirements are not very rigorous, and so most likely you're going to get in. But then you won't be able to get post the second year.
I've heard that.
So you can't get into your clerkship years because they keep you on the island. You got to take this exam.
Right.
I think they call it the NBME. So you go to the NBME to get off the island to come for clerkship in the US. Because you do your first 2 years in the island, then 2 years in the US.
Yeah.
And so the attrition rate is what they call it. It's really high. So you'd see most of the schools saying that they have a very big admission match rate. So 94% of our students match into their residency programs, but it's the number of people who actually graduate that match. And I wouldn't say that it's the schools that are bad in that sense that people are not able to graduate. It might be the fact that many people just apply to go there because they really want to be doctors, and maybe they just got rejected from Canada and the US for a reason, right? And they didn't consider the options very well and end up in the Caribbean, and then you end up in a hole of debt because I think it's like at least $250,000, gone down the drain.
Here's actually the funny thing. So at one point I was considering like America, Caribbean, and things like that, just because I'm like, okay, like if I don't get into Canada again, I need another game plan. And I have like a close family friend that went to Grenada. And so he was really nice. Like he I asked if I can call him and just ask questions. And that was one of the things he said too. He's like, again, like, you have to know yourself.
Yep,
because a lot of these
true.
schools, a lot of people go down to these schools, basically what you were saying. And they're like repeating classes a whole bunch of time. Like he was like, the class sizes down there are huge.
Yep.
Not because there's that many people in our years, because a lot of people are retaking and things like that. So
Yep.
he's like, you really have to go down there and like, you know, put your head down and study, because like you said, a lot of people go down there and don't make it out as a doctor. You know what I'm saying? Like they kind of, I don't know. So I was like, okay, like that. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I just want to encourage people again, if you still want to go, I mean, if you really,
again,
you just know that you're going to do a lot of work.
Exactly.
I mean, way more than you would do in a Canadian or an American school.
Yeah.
But it is possible.
Canada is one of those places where it's just like, it's very hard to get in, but once you're in, they will strive to keep you there.
Yeah.
And I knew I wanted to go to a school that like had my back in terms of, we'll look for alternatives for you. We'll, you know, you can take some time off if anything happens. You know, like they really have your back once you're in.
Yeah.
And that was important to me. And that's why I was just like, you know what? I think Canada's where I want to go. If not Canada, then America.
Yeah. Is there any difference that you can think about between American schools and Canadian schools?
We don't have like all of the board exams they have. So they have like step 1, 2, 3. We don't have that. We just have our MCCQ. So like the board exam to pass medical school or to go into residency. Also, another big factor is that, again, Canada doesn't have a lot of schools, meaning that once you get into a Canadian schools, all of them are at the same level of accreditation type of thing. So even if you get into one Canadian school, it's like, you're good type of thing. We're all the same level, all very competitive, all very rigorous, all very good. In America, there's levels. So you can get into a medical school in America and it be like a lower grade medical school, or you can get into like a higher grade. Canada, no. You get into medical school,
you're in
it's a good medical school. Yeah.
And you're going to be an excellent doctor.
Yeah.
From there. I would think it's a little bit expensive to go to med school in the US.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But they do hand out like scholarships and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I know you can get like full rides in America. Canada, there's no full ride. You can get scholarships, but like they're not giving no full ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you did your interview. I'm not going to ask you questions about your interview because I also know that's confidential. But so you were able to get in after that. So how did it feel when they finally sent you your admission letter?
First of all, let me tell you guys, if you're waiting for an acceptance, do not try to take that day off. Do not go to work. I made the mistake of going into work. That was the worst work day ever. Like I was so unproductive. I didn't get anything done. Like
that was on the day your acceptance came in.
They will tell you like medical students know it's sometime in May. You're gonna get the answer. Yes, you're accepted, or no. So everyone that's like the prime day. Everyone's waiting for that day. Okay. I decided that I was gonna work that day, and worst day. Like I was just waiting for the email of what's happening. Barely got anything done. I would go in to see patients and be like, hi, let's keep it short. I need to get out of here. My heart was pounding. It was a horrible work day. But I actually found out, at work, I was actually at the front desk that day. Horrible place to be.
Yeah.
And I remember getting the email.
There's clients waiting to be served.
Yeah, clients are waiting. I'm like, you wait for me to get my acceptance.
Yeah.
And then I looked at my phone and I remember the email popped up. First of all, I didn't realize that they put your acceptance or denial. There's a site that you apply to med school on. So they put it there at 12 a.m. I didn't even know that. So people already knew they were accepted, and I was waiting for the email that comes out at 2 p.m. So I was stressing for no reason. But you know what? Apparently the site shut down because everyone's on it. So
broke down.
Yeah. So I was I saw the email come in and my heart dropped. I was like and then literally I opened the email. I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna go to the washroom? What are we doing here? But I was like, I don't have time to go to the washroom. So I literally opened it at the front desk at my work. And I saw, it took me so long to find the words you're accepted. They send some big paragraph and I was skimming it and I couldn't find the decision. And I was like, oh my gosh, for so long I was looking at the, anyway, I finally saw we're excited to grant you admission. And it was just a sigh of relief. It wasn't even a scream or initial cry or it was just a finally, thank you, Lord. And then I cried. So then I went to the washroom and I just, I cried. And then I told my parents, I regret this till this day. I did not tell my parents on the phone. I just sent them like the acceptance letter.
Yeah.
In like the family group chat. And I'm till this day I'm so mad because like I wanted to hear their voice. My mom is very extra.
Yeah.
And so she would have been like screaming and oh my gosh. So till this day I'm like, damn, like I really missed that reaction. But yeah, they were all really excited. I told like my uncle and everyone was just really, really excited. So
you should go and try, pretend, try play pretend. So come into the news and see how your mom reacts or your uncle or whatever.
I don't know, man. So now like matching into residency, I'm like, no, we're doing this different. We're doing this. I'm not doing it the same way. Like I'm going to call my parents, whatever. We weren't, because I was still living with roommates and stuff. So I wasn't like with my parents to be like, oh, let me wait till I get home.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But,
so it took you like a week to get home or something.
Yeah. But like I could have FaceTimed or called like just to hear the reaction. That was crazy on my part.
So did you sign it immediately when it came in or did you wait till like after work was done?
No, I couldn't wait. I probably want to say like 30 minutes because like I had to be able to come down from my high. So yeah, I sent it to them maybe like 30 minutes after.
Yeah.
And like they were just like flooding the group chat. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it was just a sigh of relief.
And at what point did you tell your employer or whatever, like supervisor or something, whatever?
Months after.
Oh.
that was months after.
So
I didn't tell them I was applying to med school. No, because remember when I got the interview, I had just started that job.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so I told them like maybe towards the end of summer, I was like, hey, I'm going to medical school. And at first she was just like, oh, congrats. So do you want to like change your hours? I was like, no, I'm quitting. I'm actually quitting.
What do you mean?
Because I thought she thought, because you know what, there were a lot of students. There was another girl working with me that was in nursing school. So a lot of people will get into their programs and just be like, I have to go from full to part-time.
Oh, okay,
I was like,
I see.
no, babe, like, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, because I was a really good worker. So like she was kind of sad. But it was nice because they sent out like a mass email to like everyone that worked there, all the doctors and all that. And Trina's getting into, they didn't say medical program, but like her grad program. So then everyone was coming up to me like, oh, like what did you get into? And I was like medicine. And they were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it was nice.
For you, I
yeah,
guess.
they were happy. They were very happy.
Do you keep in touch with any of them?
Yes. The girl that I worked with, we were like besties. That's my bestie. I think she's in her 4th year of nursing. Like we still go back and forth. Like we'd be like, what are you learning? And we always seem to be learning like the same thing around the same time. So it's great.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful to have friends that you can, bounce off of information like that. Yeah,
exactly. Shout out her. Yeah.
Okay, so you go through the motions, eventually get into school.
Yeah,
so let's talk about, that first week of getting into school. What is it like? Or what should I expect if I were admitted?
First week of medical school?
Yeah.
Well, you start with orientation week. That's like such a good time.
Yeah.
It's just a time like you play games, you get to know who's in your year. Such like great time. First week of school though, it wasn't too bad. Like they ease you in. It's not like you're just thrown into the deep end. They'll ease you in. Actually, no, that's not. Our first day of school, we had an exam.
First day of school?
Yeah, an exam.
What exam?
It was like,
what are you examining me?
Right. It was like an entrance exam. It has nothing to do, like it's not graded. It's not like it would affect your grade or anything. It's not like you would be like, oh, you failed this, so you can't go into medical school. It's just like I guess to see where you are. I don't even know I think it's to scare you. I don't know. U of T does that every year, and like all the first years stress about it, and then you get into second year and you just tell the first years relax, like they don't care about that exam.
Yeah.
But other than that, they ease you in pretty well. You get your schedule, you get to ease into your schedule, ease into like the lecture style, get to know your colleagues, your other med students a bit better. Yeah.
But most of the students that I teach are actually either medical students or going into medical school or something like that.
Okay.
And they are just looking for ways to, benefit from biomedical engineering as a whole. So I was looking at your curriculum and I couldn't understand your curriculum a lot. So I don't have a baseline of questions to ask about what the curriculum is like. Yeah, but we can talk because I know that I understood you guys have something like longitudinal themes or something like that, but I couldn't be able to understand it. And even OMSAS, which lists some of the curriculums, didn't have your curriculum as well.
They said we don't know what they're doing over there.
Yeah.
So we have just our regular lectures. That's when you have different doctors. So undergrad is a bit different than med school, where undergrad, for each class, you have the same person coming in and teach you. Med school is not like that at all, because it really depends on your expertise. So say, for example, you're in your pediatric week, you're going to have a pediatrician come in and teach you. If you're in your geriatric week, you have
Yeah.
a geriatrician come in. So like it's different people every lecture.
Okay.
So yeah. So lecture is kind of where you learn your core content.
Yeah.
Okay. So they'll say you're in your geriatric week, they'll teach you the basics of geriatrics, whatever. You have something called case-based learning. That's where you get into small groups and you do like a real life case that will ask you questions based on the lecture.
Okay.
So say we're in our geriatric week, the case will follow a geriatric patient who maybe took a fall, and then you
Yeah.
have to answer questions, okay? So there's CBL. We also have clinical skills. So that's now your hands-on learning. So that's where you learn to take your histories.
Yeah.
That's where you learn to do your physical exams. That's where you learn, just things like that. That's where you're hands-on. You also have... We have different courses that like are not consistent. So you have, for example, like health science research. That's when you learn a bit more about like how to approach research, how to understand articles and things like that, because you have to know how to use that to then translate into medicine. So we have that course, although that course happens every like month, like once a month. So it's very like broken up. We also have something called portfolio. Basically, that's where you sit with a doctor and you we call it like our therapy session. So you kind of sit and talk about your developing identity as a med student, as a future physician, because, there's a lot of things changing. Like now you have a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
And then you're seeing a lot of things that you haven't seen before as well. So portfolios where you can talk about that. I want to say those are like the core aspects of our curriculum. You have the lectures, the case-based learning, clinical skills, and then you have side classes like portfolio and health science research. We also have a health in the communities course where, again, they want us to be involved in our community and see what's going on there. So you work with a community initiative. The one that we worked with was looking for housing for mental health patients or people struggling with mental health diagnoses. So yeah, it's very interesting. It is an interesting curriculum because, again, there's so much more that goes into being a doctor. It's not just let me sit down and listen to lectures, which is why we have the health science research part, health in the communities, clinical skills, which is the hands-on, CBL, which is like our small group learning. Yeah. So yeah, it's very difficult to understand when you first like learn about it. I remember the first month or so, it was hard to like, what are we doing now? They'd be like, oh, case-based learning. And I was like, oh, but I thought that was lecture. Like it was hard to kind of get into it. But yeah, as you go along, you see why each part is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody came from a background, and maybe I actually also wanted to ask this question for the MCAT.
Okay.
But maybe we can talk about that in a little while. So let's say somebody came from a background that is not biomedical in nature, so they probably didn't take an undergrad where they understand stuff like you did. So let's say they did a social sciences undergrad or even an arts undergrad. Do you think they're going to be successful in the program?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because, and that's actually something that in Canada more and more is happening, where it's just like people will be medical students with an arts degree.
Yeah.
They did violin studies and going into med school.
Yeah.
Specifically for the MCAT, you can learn everything that you need to learn in one sitting. Like you may just need a bit longer. Remember I said I took 2 months because I had all of that background information. But say you're coming from a background where like, I didn't take biology or chemistry. You can just buy the books. Yeah. And then sit and study for a bit longer because obviously you need more of that time to understand the content. Yeah. But I've seen people do it. Like you can definitely be successful in the MCAT. And again, Canada like actually likes students that come from like backgrounds where, it's unconventional. Yeah. Because it shows that you're multifaceted. So you can definitely get into med school, do well in the MCAT. It's just, you just may need a bit more time. Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't have to do like an undergrad course in biology or organic chemistry.
That's a good point. Sorry for bringing. So there are some schools that need specific requirements.
Okay.
So you would have to take like, so for example, I'm pretty sure UOttawa needs like chemistry, biochem, etc. So you would need to take those. Yeah. There are other schools that they're just like, you just need to have, they'll be like, for example, U of T, they're like, you just need 1 credit in sciences. That can mean anything. That can be geography. Yeah. Is a science. So that's where you see people coming from a lot of different backgrounds. So I would say do research into the school you're interested in and see what they need. Because Canada specifically, a lot of schools need like different things. Some schools want your core sciences. Other schools are just like, we just need a science. That can mean anything or be anything, but it just needs a science.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the first time you saw a cadaver. How was that for you?
That's actually really funny. Sorry, shameless plug. I have a med page.
Okay.
Triology.
Yeah, talk about it, yeah.
So TRIIOLOGY. So Triology. I document a lot of like those first time experiences, just like for me to be able to look back on, because it's just so cute. And that was something that I did talk about, where it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to react to these cadavers. I was nervous that I would be very like taken aback and not want to work on them. I was absolutely fine. Like I was actually one of the students that was like, okay, let me do it. Like I was in there. I loved working with the cadavers. I feel like it was such a privilege to be able to like hold someone's lung, hold someone's heart, do this. So I loved it. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
Till this day, like recently I went to the dentist and she was telling me that at one point she wanted to actually be a dentist. I was at the dentist, but I was talking to the dental hygienist.
Okay, yeah.
And so she was saying that there was a point in time where she wanted to be a dentist, but she couldn't do the cadavers.
Yeah.
And she was like, how do you do cadavers? Like, that's like one of the main questions I get when I tell people, or when people ask, like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, med student. They're like, oh, cadavers? But like, I was fine with them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was fine with them.
Okay.
I did ease myself in though.
Okay.
Where like, the first time I was kind of just looking and then I would start touching, but I was fine. So I wouldn't say there were students that were scared of the entire process, but there were definitely certain parts of the cadaver that they were just like, I can't do. Like I have a friend that she can't do eyes. Like once we did the eyes, she was like, I actually must stand back. Like and then there was also friends where it's just like when we had to work on like just the face as a whole, because there's something about seeing like facial features that just makes it like facial features, fingers, nails, like some of the cadavers, their nails were painted and people couldn't do that. Yeah. So I would say there's specific parts that people were like, no, but I don't think I had a classmate that like the entire cadaver experience, they were like, yeah, I can't do this. Like most of the time when we were in like the thoracic or the abdominal area, people were just like, yeah, I could do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So soon you're going to be going into your clerkship years. Are you excited about that?
I'm scared. But yes, I'm actually so excited. Like, this is what we came to med school for. Like, yeah, I'm very excited. But it's also very scary.
Rotations, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very scary.
I just want to let folks know here that this episode was actually meant to be recorded during the Black History Month. But due to our clashing schedules, it was not possible. But, finally, thank you for making it up, to show up today. And also, I want to let folks know that... a few days ago it was International Women's Day. It was actually yesterday. Yeah.
Shout out all the women.
Yeah, this episode is going to come out 2 weeks after International Women's Day, but since we only have women coming up this month in this pod, I'm just going to be giving a shout out, when I'm putting this up. So you probably would have watched a shout out earlier on in the episode before you get to this point. But just going back to the fact that we are people of color, and it might be helpful to talk about this. Did you have any Black role models when you were growing up who were in the medical field?
Yeah, I have a lot of family members. I wouldn't say physician, but in the medical field. So I have a lot of cousins that are nurses. One of my aunts is a nurse practitioner. Another cousin's a midwife. So lots of expertise and like representation in healthcare. And that's why it's just like, yes, healthcare is what I wanted. I didn't have a lot of representation in terms of like physicians specifically. And that's why I had to be intentional with going out and finding that.
Yeah.
And so, there was a lot of people and organizations that I used. For example, Community of Support is at U of T, and they like their sole purpose is to increase the number of minority students in medical schools. And so they help in terms of finding mentors to read your applications, to interview prep with you and things like that. So I really use that, and they're free. So I use that resource, and I feel like that's where I found a lot of my mentors to help me get into med school. And I've also helped give back to Community of Support in terms of I've interview prepped a lot of different people and reviewed applications and things like that. So I feel like
I think it was helpful that you had all the resources available to you. And earlier on we said that in your application, you're going to be saying what you've been doing since you were 16 years old.
Right.
And it is possible that you're in a community where you were since you were 16 years old or whenever you were young, you were told, study. And that's all you did. You never went out to volunteer in the community. You never talked to anybody or anything like that. Is there anything that people like this can do now to change their applications to to be more favorable?
Just engage with your community, do some volunteer, it doesn't even just jobs. Find jobs that can give you a lot of skills. Yes, it may not be the exact skill you need for medical school, but it's transferable. Meaning that you learn one thing in this one job, you can transfer it to med school. And that's what they're looking for when they ask you, what are the things that you've done since you were 16? They're trying to look for those transferable skills. So indulge in different jobs, different volunteer activities, get out into your community, find mentors. There was something else that I was going to mention. Indulge in your hobbies. So they love to see that, like, I run. That's one of the ways that
I recorded podcasts.
Sorry, I don't run. That was an example.
Okay.
For example, I journal. That was one thing I added to my application the second time around. And they saw that as like a perfect, like she has something that she does when she's stressed or to kind of decompress. And they want to see that because medical school is stressful. The journey is very stressful. They need to know that you're not just all school and books. You volunteer, you help out your family, you are in a church community if you have one. You know, you're more than just a med student. You're multifaceted.
Why do you journal?
Well, mine is like a prayer journal specifically. And so I journal my prayer requests. So things that I'm worried about and I'm asking God to help me with. Things that are coming up, and then I also journal my praise reports. So things that God was able to help me with, open my eyes to, open the doors to, even close the doors to. And that helps a lot because when I'm in situations like medical, you know, going through the medical process and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is this going to work out for me? I can look back at my prayer journal and be like, Trina, you prayed for XYZ and God was able to answer all of these prayers for you. And not even necessarily like answer in terms of the door opened or it was a yes, but answer in terms of something happened and it ended up working out in my best interest. So it's just like me looking back at that and being like, God's been coming through for me for XYZ years. Why for this med school journey would he like forsake me? So I use that as like a really good journaling prompt. And it's honestly helped me even like now in medical school when I'm struggling with stuff. I'm just like, Trina, open your prayer journal. Because like, look where God has brought you. And then it calms me down.
Okay. I love that fact, actually. So I also do journal. But my reason for journal is still the same thing. I'm writing for my daughter to know what my experiences are like. And I hope that it inspires her someday. But I like that yours is actually inspiring you. And maybe I should actually also go back to what
go back to yours and see what... No, recently I went back to like the first couple pages I wrote. And I started journaling during COVID. So this was 2020. And that was, I think 2020, I was in my third year of school. Either second or third. I don't know. Somewhere in between there. And like, I see some of the stuff I was praying for. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so cute. Like I was praying to pass my organic chemistry test. And now I'm praying about like clerkship rotations and stuff. Like you see the growth. I also can look back and see like the time when I was praying about med school interviews. And then you fast forward a little bit and I see that I got a med school interview and now I'm praying, Lord, please help me do well on the interview. And then fast forward a little bit and then I see that I'm praying that I get an acceptance. So it's just like you see the trajectory. And that's one of the other reasons, sorry to cut you off. That's one of the other reasons I made triology as well. Because I don't know, there's something about seeing that growth and seeing yourself go through different stages of life that like just pushes you and encourages you in the current stage or season that you're in. So
True. When you write your journal, you're actually writing prayers down.
No, so it's more of like, I'll write my request or what I'm worried about. And then after I write that, then I pray about everything that's on that page.
So I've been looking at the climate around, and some people do feel that, or they've been talking about diversity in medical education.
The what? Sorry, diversity?
Diversity in medical education, lowering the quality of medical doctors. I don't know if you've seen that, but I think that all doctors do take the same board exams, and they are certified by the same organizations as everybody else. And the DEI may not really matter, but I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on this claim of diversity in medicine lowering the quality of the doctors that we have out here.
It actually kind of angers me when I hear stuff about that, because people don't realize that like papers and research has shown that patients feel that they get better care when it's someone that looks like them or someone that's diverse. So it's just like us adding to diversity will make patients feel like they have better care. So how would that then mean that, you know what I'm saying? Like doctors are not gonna, and then like you said before, it's just like, once you get in, we all go to the same, you're in Canada. All of the schools are accredited. You all go through the same rigorous training, rigorous exams. Like everyone has to learn their stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't agree when people say because they're increasing diversity, it's going to decrease like the skill set of the physician.
Yeah.
Like one of the biggest skill sets is, are you able to relate to your patient and speak with your patient? You can be a great doctor, but because you don't relate to any of your patients or know how to speak to your patients, they don't feel like they're getting cared for. And so now it's just like, okay, yeah, all of that schooling and your patients don't feel seen, heard, and they're not getting the care they need. So it's just like, it's so much more than being a doctor is so much more than what, like, your knowledge and what you know. Yes, that's a big part of it. But it's also like, can you interact with patients? Do you know how to see where people are coming from? Do you know different experiences, different diversities and things like that? So yeah, I find it interesting when people say that.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Ashley Denmark. She's a medical doctor in the US. Worked her ass off to become a medical doctor, and right now runs a page called Project Diversify Medicine. Because this is all she talks about over there right now. And I think that it's really important that what you just said here right now, that, I would probably feel better if I'm treated by someone who looks like me, right? True. Have you ever felt, though, like there's any disparities in medical care, especially in terms of race? Have you seen that at all? Okay.
Absolutely. A big thing, even like when you think of things like hypertension and diabetes, a lot of the care is what you eat. And if you don't really know what people eat or in the cultural background to why people do what they do, why they eat what they eat, then it's hard to counsel people. So it's important that we have doctors that look like you to be like, yeah, I know your cultural dish. I have the same thing too. Yep. Let's look at tangible, cultural, appropriate ways to still, work on the hypertension, the diabetes, the hypertension, pre-diabetes, but still keep your culture. And that's one of the things we talk about a lot I talked about the portfolio sessions that we have at U of T. We talk about that a lot, where it's just like, how do you offer care in a culturally appropriate manner, where you're still highlighting people's cultures and not telling them to throw away what you're eating and just eat XYZ, like a westernized diet. So it's like, that's not realistic for a lot of people. How do we counsel in a way that still holds true to their culture, but can still help them in the long run? Because we know that when people get counseling that aligns with their culture, it's more long-term and they can stick with it, versus you telling them to do this one thing and they're able to do it for a week and then they fall off because it's just like, well, for Christmas when I went to my family's house and we're all eating XYZ, I forgot about that random diet that you told me about because it didn't align with what I was doing.
True. Yeah. And I'm happy that there's some schools who are actually doing something about this. I don't know about U of T, they probably are, but I know that MAC is doing what they call the Black Equity Stream, whereby they have medical students. Well, they do need to have the same qualifications as everybody else.
Yeah.
But then again, they can also say why the experience of Black people would make them a good doctor.
I think that started at the BSAP program.
Oh, cool. That's great. I mean, they also have amazing programs like the indigenous people also have their own program. Yes. And the folks in the military also have their own program. I think these are nice pathways to enable people from different diverse backgrounds to get into med school.
And I just want to highlight, before you continue, I just want to highlight the fact that like these programs or these streams are not an easier path for Indigenous students or Black students. You need the same qualifications.
Yep.
It's just the people who are reading your applications are going to be identifying in the same way as you. So you'd have Black physicians, Black community members, Black medical students reading your application. That's the only difference. But otherwise, you still have to have the same qualifications. Because I know some people like to look at stuff like that and be like, oh, well, you got an easier way in. It's just like, no, I just got people that look like me to read my application.
Yeah. I actually didn't know that part about, what U of T does, that people look like you look at your application. Is there a way that you think Black doctors and Black people, Black medical professionals address some of these disparities? I know you said, one of the things is, the education they give, especially in pre-diabetes or pre-hypertension.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you think, we could do?
What we could do or what we are currently doing.
Okay.
So I can talk on what is being currently done in terms of like, we know representation is a huge thing and a huge barrier for medical students. And so at a lot of the schools, we have something called the Black Medical Student Association. And I love BMSA because it's just an area where like, there's people that look like you, people that have the same cultural background, and like we all come together. And in that group, we run different things for the community. So I know right now, U of T, I'm on BMSAC or BMSA at U of T.
Yeah.
And I'm one of the leads for the health promotion. And we started something where we do CPR classes for like minority communities, for minority high school students, things like that. So it's just kind of like getting into the community a bit more to see basically what we can do for them. So that's one of those things. And then we also have Black Medical Student Association of Canada. And we have, every year we have a general meeting where all of the Black medical students, all areas of Canada come together and they can show their research. We can talk about some of the disparities that are happening in our communities. We can basically just like be around each other. And again, it gives you that energy to be like, yes, like I'm a Black person in medicine. Ours this year, it's actually coming up in April. So I'm really, really, really excited for it.
Okay.
But yeah, there are stuff that we have in place that are there to support us as we're in medical school. Because it's one thing to increase the diversity in medical schools, but it's like, how are you going to support these diverse students when they come in? So, yeah.
Great. Is there any piece of advice that you can give to a young Black girl or guy seated somewhere right now watching this and hope to become a medical doctor one day?
Yeah. I would say don't give up. It's a very challenging journey. It has a very large mental toll. And I can see that is because I experienced that. But yeah, don't give up. Like, we need you. You are necessary in the medical field. You have a voice in the medical field. And so push through. Find your Black mentors. Find someone that can help you, whether it be application review, interview prep. There are people that are willing to help you. Find those people. And yeah, push through. That's like one of the main things, because it's going to be hard. But yeah, you're necessary. You're needed. We need you both as patients and as a future Black doctor. Yep. So yeah.
True.
Push through.
What is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
Oh, I love that. I love questions like that. Don't let other people's fears and like worries and them feeling like they're incapable translate to you. Please do not let other people's worries translate to you. They're their own person. They understand their capabilities. You're your own person. So them saying that it's going to be hard for them does not necessarily mean it's going to be hard for you. And even if it is hard for you, if you know that like this is something that you want to do, this is something that has been put on your heart, then go through with it and bring God with you and he will help you on the journey. But yeah, don't let other people's worries translate to you. And I feel like I talked about that a bit at the beginning, but that's something that like really almost didn't make me apply to medical school. So yeah.
I think you've talked about how, you know, you've had people who mentored you and, you know, have a lovely family that you talk to and stuff like that. But is there one piece of advice that you feel like you've received, one piece of advice that you can really remember that really changed your life or changed your perspective? Who was it from and what was that piece of advice?
I would say it's from my uncle, because I remember when I was going back and forth between like, this whole doctor journey is hard. Let me do something else in healthcare instead. So like I was looking into accelerated nursing programs at one point in my life. I was looking into nurse practitioner. These are both great programs. Shout out all my nurses and all my nurse practitioners. But I knew what my calling was and I was trying to kind of like do something else that I thought would, you know, not necessarily be a bit easier, but at least easier to get into. Yeah. And I remember my uncle was just like, stop. Like you are supposed to be a doctor. Stop putting these fears on yourself. Stop letting other people put these fears on you. Stop putting these fears on yourself. Like, go for what you want. And I'm really happy I listened to that, because now, like, I love medical school. Like, genuinely, I look at myself and I'm like, I'm supposed to be here. And if I listened to even like myself sometimes and like let those fears bring me down, I wouldn't be here.
So, Trina, when I have guests on this show, I treat them like presidents. And I take this from and I take this from, you know, in the US, something that I see them doing is when a president is coming into office, they normally get a letter from the guy who was in the office before. Really? And so the guest who was on this show a couple of days ago wrote a question for you.
Oh, wow.
So you're also going to get an opportunity to write a question for the next person on this show.
I'll make it hard. I'm joking.
Yeah.
Joking.
Well, the question they have here is something that I already asked you before. So I'm just going to ask you again, because I don't look at these questions until you're sitting right before me and we are at this point, then I open that question because I don't want to, think about it and I don't want it to
alter. Authentic.
Yeah. So the question for you is, what would the current you tell your 15-year-old self?
So do I answer it the same way that I answered it before, or?
No, you can take it any way that you want.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, so I answered it a bit before. I'm going to kind of go a different route. So I would tell my younger self that you don't have to do like one thing. So like, say medical student or medical school is your goal. Tap into your hobbies as well. Like now I make content, yes, on med stuff. But I also did hair content as well. And there was a point in time where like I got paid for that. That was like kind of my side hustle at one point. And I don't know, like that really opened my eyes to be like, Trina, you could do so many things as well. Like you can be a med student and do so many things. So don't box yourself in to be like, oh, because medical school, that's the only thing I'm be doing. Like, no, if you also, I have so many friends. I have a friend specifically that she is like a musician and she still like teaches piano and teaches violin while she's in med school. She still performs while she's in med school. So it's just like, medical school does not need to be your end all be all. It does not need to kind of take up your entire life. You can still, if you had different hobbies, different things that you like to do before getting into med school, continue those. But you're more than just one little aspect of what like, oh, I want to become this. So tap into those things. And I feel like that's what makes you a better doctor. Like you having a creative side that you're able to tap into, you still being around your friends and your family and things like that. So you're more than just that one goal that you have for yourself. Have different aspects of your life that you can kind of, turn to, especially when medical school gets stressful or when just like the journey of becoming a doctor gets stressful, then it's like you can decompress with these other things. Like I love making content. So yeah.
We'll look out for that space. I mean, I follow a bunch of other guys as well who make med content. One of the guys that I really follow is called Dr. J. Ratland, and he just started his own podcast called, I think, the Health Something Podcast. He's down in Texas. Real good guy. Just haven't had time to go down to have him on this pod because I need to fly over there. He can't make it over here, so I need to go down there to have him on the pod. But it's also nice to see you guys making that type of content because it makes it relatable to what we do. And what I aim to do with this podcast also is to showcase to the world what this life looks like when we have these conversations. They kind of like become more authentic, and maybe the fear that we have of who doctors are or who engineers are or who teachers are or accountants are becomes kind of demystified and we get to understand it better. In line with that, is there anything about medicine that you used to hear before that you'd like to demystify right now? Anything that you used to some cliche about what medicine is?
I would say that you have to be a certain personality type to do well in medical school. Like that's the reason why we have different specialties. Like there is a space for every personality type, for the goofy person, for the very serious person. Like that's what makes medicine interesting, and that's what makes you as a doctor able to relate to different people. But you don't have to be the serious person who only studies medicine and who just kind of keeps their head down and doesn't like. If you know me, I'm a very goofy, silly person. I like to travel. I like to read. I like there's a lot of different aspects of me. I like to laugh. I like to make jokes. And I don't know, for a small amount of time, I thought that when I got into medical school, I was like, damn, I was going to have to decrease my personality and just be that like very serious person that just answers questions like this. And it's just like, no. I, as a medical student, I love working with doctors that are able to show their personalities and that are fun and that are funny and that, will talk about their kids and their family when there's downtime at a shift. So like, just remember, you're still a human. It doesn't matter what profession you're in. You're still a human and you still need to be able to relate to people and show your personality and things like that.
All right. So at this point, I'm going to give you an opportunity to write the question for the next guest on the show. So
I'm writing it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So take some time, think about it. Here you go. I won't see the
Sorry
question
to that next person. I'm joking.
No worries. It could be anything. Could be anything, really. Thank you very much.
Oh, right. You don't look at it.
Yeah, I don't look at it.
He's like...
Yep. All right. So, Trina.
Yes.
It's been nice hanging out with you here.
It's been nice doing... I was a little bit nervous at first because I'm like, what am I going to say? What am I gonna say? Like, am I gonna know how to answer these questions? But I had such a good time.
Yeah.
I had such a good time. Yeah.
That's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah, it was really nice.
I think I was also a bit nervous at the beginning, so it's
Wait,
good
why
that
were you
you
nervous?
also know. Because I didn't want to ask stupid questions.
Oh, okay. No, you didn't ask any. You asked really good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I hope that the folks who are gonna watch this, will learn something from here. And my daughter is gonna watch this a couple of years from now.
Hi,
will also learn
Karen.
something from here. Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to say, or something that you've thought of that you really like to say, and I probably didn't ask it?
That's a good question.
This would be an opportunity for you to, just say whatever you want to tell the folks out there.
Just again, like from how I speak, I know you guys can tell that like God plays a very central role in my life. And I would say keep God at the center of like literally anything you do. Like this is for anyone. Like you don't have to be going into med school or a pre-med or interested in healthcare at all. Like you can be interested in advertising, in content creation. Keep God at the center of everything that you do and just listen to his leading and his calling, and you will go wherever God wants you to go. And it will be good for you. You don't have to worry about like, am I doing what I need to do? Like if you listen to God, you are where you need to be at whatever time you're at, and things will fall into place. That's what I would say. Because I feel like things are now able to fall into a place, or looking like they fall into a place in my life. But there was a point where I was just like, what is going on here? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But because I kept God at the center, and I really let him lead, even at the times where it's just like, I don't know what's going on, it all ends up working out. It really does all end up working out. And like, I don't know, I used to hear that a lot as a pre-med, it'll work out. And like, it's just like, oh, like it worked out for you, it won't work out for me. But like,
yeah,
it genuinely will work out if you have good intentions in mind, if God is the center of your life. Yeah, it will work out for you.
Trina, it's been nice hanging out with you here.
It's been so nice.
Soon to be Dr. Trina. And I wish your patients all the best.
Yeah, me too. I wish you guys the best.
I think they're going to have a really lovely doctor who is really fun and engaging and really interested in their welfare.
Yes,
I can really tell that you are really passionate about what you're doing. So that's
I love
great.
that. I love when people can tell that
Yeah.
I'm passionate.
If you made it this far, it means that you really like this show. Thank you. This has been The Couch Connect. I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel and like this episode. And also remember to tell your friends to tell their friends about this show. Till next time, do take care. Kwaheri.
Yay.